Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports. I apologize in advance if I am out of line here.
Brace yourselves, boys. We're going in.
Am I hallucinating here? Just what in the hell do you think you're doing?
I'm not reading. I'm just looking at the picture. Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports.
Welcome all to another week of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Long. I am the managing editor of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports website at the CHTonsports.com. Mike's giving me a fit right now. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in wherever you guys decide to tune in for each and every Tuesday that we do this from 8:30 to 11:30. I know a lot of you tune in on have been tuning in since 2012. This is actually the 226th episode of this show. We do this. That's why we say it's real sports talk, real sports takes. That's what we do here. For real. Real. Most of you have been listening since the beginning over on Blog Talk Radio. The show has evolved and has changed, and we're syndicated. So some of you listen to us on the Spreaker app, which is amazing. We got an app. We had to find a service that provided an app. Some of you listen to us on YouTube Live. Some of you listen to us over on Google Hangouts. Some are listening to us on SoundCloud right now, which is one of the fastest growing ways to listen to us. Or you can go over to the website, thechtonsports.com. Upper left-hand corner, just click on the listen link. You can listen to all of our shows. All of them are there. The good ones and the better ones. Yeah, I've had some bad shows, but they're in there too. You're going to hear more good than bad. I promise. I didn't schedule any guests this week. So if you want to call in, 347-237-5539. Again, 347-237-5549 is the way to call in. You can message me on Facebook, which a lot of you do. My profile is Matt Long Sports, and that's my handle for basically everything. So if you want to message me on Facebook, as you can see here, I mean, got quite a few people who already started to do so. And I will address them as we go through the show. Twitter, at Matt Long Sports. And those will get me directly. If you want to tweet at or message or like or follow, I appreciate it. YouTubers, I see you guys. I'm look at me. I'm looking right at you. Subscribe. Just do it. Do it. Thank you. I appreciate for the tens of people that have subscribed and the tens of more people that subscribe after this week. We're working on the pages. We want to get some things moved around and organized. So you can go over to the CHT on Sports on YouTube, the handle there, and you'll see a video of the show where I do it from my home office studio. And you'll see some of the lovely credentials of NFL, like the national championship game this last year in Tampa. I was credentialed for that, and the Shrine game, credentials from the Bucks games. You know, some neat stuff. I got some Sports Illustrateds over here framed up, and all the information for the show. Yes, and those of you who are looking at it, you'll see Kevin Crest, at Kevin Crest, my co-host for the show. He's planning on joining the show here in the next few weeks or so. Not really sure when, but He'll be back pretty soon. In the meantime, you can go to check out his blog at kevcrestsports@blogspot.com. And we're in the process. He's going to get Beyond the Commentary site will be up and published here before too long. In the meantime, you can go over to thechtonsports.com. We syndicate all of his blogs over on our website as well. So always check it out over there. I got a Kyrie article up, and I talked about this for months. Kyrie, he's done. He's done with Cleveland. I've talked to a few people that said his dad, I mean, we talk about LeVar Ball being in his kid's ear. Look, a lot of people say Kyrie's father was in his ear about saying he wasn't going to play in Cleveland. Again, that was the first year after LeBron left, but he went there. And he was going to leave before he re-upped after his rookie deal. He stayed. A year after they win a championship, he wants to leave. And he wants to leave again this year. And he asked, again, I will say this again. He went to, and David Griffin confirmed this. He did go to Dan Gilbert and asked to be traded. He confirmed that. What my sources have said, David Griffin has confirmed Kyrie Irving did go to Dan Gilbert and he did ask to be traded. And from what my sources said, while David Griffin was there, he was in the process of fielding options. And one of them was Kyrie to the Suns in exchange for another player or players or picks. They didn't have the details on that, but it was in the works to potentially trading Kyrie Irving to the Suns. I don't know if my sources are better than others on this, but I've been talking about this for weeks. This is not news anymore. It's not breaking. But maybe someone that's bigger than me listens to this or reads the article and says, oh, what? Griffin, before he walked, he was going to trade Kyrie? What? So Kyrie went to him twice. In a sense, he went to him and asked before everybody got traded and said, hey, I want to be traded. Then Gilbert was like, Griff looked for options. The Suns, I understand there was some sort of dialogue there. Griffin walked. Dan Gilbert didn't follow through on it. And we are where we are today, where he publicly said, I want to be traded. After all these players get moved and he doesn't get traded away, essentially giving the Cavaliers, again, a lot of people are saying, being very critical of Kyrie wanting to explore his options. Listen, he thinks he's an all-star. He thinks that he's a superstar. He thinks that, or he can be the superstar, the main guy on the team. He thinks that he would like to be better off elsewhere. Whether he would be better off, I don't know. I've been very critical of his game and his role as a player in the NBA. I think he deserves to be an all-star. I don't think he's necessarily a starter as an all-star. Definitely, he might not even make the all-star team in the West at all if he went to the West. So if he's on the Suns, he might not even be the top point guard on the Suns. Let me be very clear about this. Kyrie Irving is not a top 5, top 10 player in the league. He's a scoring guard. He's not a point. He's not an off guard. He's not a shooter. He's a scorer. Okay? This is a new brand of guard that's really come into the league as of late. Chris Paul is another one. We see Russell Westbrook, is another one. So Chris Paul, he's a little bit better distributor. He can play more of a point, but he can take over games. But he's kind of made that more of a thing. Undersized. Because Kyrie really plays, a lot of those scoring guards play like they're a 3. They attack like a 3, but they play the 1, which is different. Because the 1 traditionally has always been a distributor, someone that brings the ball down, that runs the offense. And you can run the offense through them and around them, but they don't have to be the offense. Whereas with the scoring guard, they're the offense. So it's tough to get teams to ultimately win championships if your biggest star is a scoring guard. You have to have forwards. You have to have wings. And he's neither. He's somewhere in between the two. He doesn't have the size of a forward. He doesn't have the shooting ability as a wing. And he doesn't distribute the ball like a point. It's somewhere in between the scoring guards are. So ultimately, where's the value lie? Kids, if you're listening out there and you're under 6'5" 6'5" or under, make sure you work on your passing. Make sure you work on your dribbling. Make sure you work on your screens. And make sure you work on your shooting. If you're under 6'5" or under, and you aspire to be in the NBA, you could be a scorer all day long, and you can work on getting to be a scorer. But the things that you need to work on early are the fundamentals. Ball skills, being able to handle, being able to pass. Those are the first 2 things. And the problem with a lot of kids' sports, youth sports, non-competitive, competitive, they have air in the ball to begin with. Basketball should not start with air in the ball. It should start with fundamental drills, footwork, some passing, and then you work on, on dribbling, being able to get a shot off. You'll get shots off. Those are the fundamentals. It's not about driving. It's not about taking deep shots. It's getting consistent and working on the consistent form. You want to be able to get the ball, hopefully around chest high, and release it quickly. It shouldn't, like so many people, like if you see it, they get the ball and they bring it down, then to go up to shoot. That takes time away from the shot. Or they'll get the ball low. They want to pump fake or dribble a lot. It's getting the ball and immediately shooting it. Quick shots. And being able to shoot at the peak of your jump. Being able to have the upper body control to shoot. See, this Kyrie is one of those extreme outliers. Usually your lower body, where it's at, will affect how your shot is with your upper body. He's one of those weird situations where he's done so much different movement and taking so many reps at different positions or different ways of shooting it that it doesn't phase him as much as his lower body mechanics aren't on point. Gets away with it because he's such a good shooter. Again, I'm not talking about he's the greatest shooter ever. He is an elite shooter. You can't deny that. He's an elite shooter. Like him or not, he's an elite shooter. His ball handling's gotten better. He's got a little bit better at distributing the ball. He's more of a point guard than Kyrie is, but he's really not a point guard. He's an off guard. He really is. He's an off guard. But he plays the point. He's undersized. He's like 6'2". 6'2.5", something like that. Not a little shorter than me. Or right about my height. I'm about 6'3". So right about my height. I got weight on him, though. I'll back his ass down. So as far as looking at Kyrie from evaluation, I'm not super enthused by him. He's not top 5. He's not top 10, but he's going to want that because the year before LeBron came, he was the MVP of the All-Star game. He got a new contract. Good money. LeBron came back. 3 state finals. Had a good season. Has had good season since LeBron's been there. Obviously, 1 year he was hurt, which kind of diminished what they could do that first year. They lost to Golden State. Second year, he was back. He hit the shot. He's at an all-time high. Great season that year. This year was pretty much record-setting seasons. And took more shots than everybody at his position that wasn't named Russell Westbrook. That's basically the breakdown of it. He's getting off. He had more shots this season than he's ever had in his entire career. Second most of his position in the entire NBA. So it's not that he's not getting love. He's not getting play. He's not getting opportunities because they specifically have him as a closer. That's the crazy part about Kyrie. He didn't play the heaviest minutes at the beginning. He played heavier at the end in the second half. Kevin Love was more minutes in the first, lighter in the second half. Because you had 3 talents. They don't work so well together. So they stagger the minutes to be able to keep focus on the 2. And they're hoping that that'll give enough rest for LeBron and for Kyrie's second half. And if Kevin needed to come in second half, he could, which he's had to throughout the playoffs because Tristan Thompson wasn't pulling his weight like he had years past. So, is Kyrie Irving work well? Yeah, Kyrie Irving is what LeBron wanted in addition at the team. And he said, we need another scorer. Well, he didn't need another scorer. He didn't need another scorer. He needed a true point guard. Because if you have a true point, run Kyrie in a small lineup, you get your point, a true point. And again, if Darren Williams if his career pretty much wasn't gassed, if he had gas left in the tank, let's put it that way. I'm going to say he's washed up. We'll probably see him playing in the Big 3 next year. He's not done playing basketball. He still play basketball, obviously. He just can't play at the level they did when he was younger. He just can't. I think there's a tag. David tagged me. A friend of mine, David, he calls into the show every now and then. David in Atlanta tagged me on video. I mean, age is a lot of time is a mindset. We get told 30, 40, we're getting old. But why is that? Is it natural? Actually, from an evolutionary and developmental standpoint, it's not natural for people to age. This is what science has shown. Genealogists have said it's not natural for people to age because it's just the cell reproducing. But over time, the cell makes mistakes and breaks down. And that's where you get your wrinkles from. That's where you get your gray hair from. It's not reproducing the same way it's supposed to. So there's errors in the genealogy. So the cells don't, when the cells reproduce, they're not reproducing the same when they should. But they have errors and they break down. That's where aging comes from. Cellular breakdown. It's not natural. It happens. How we've gotten to this point. Some genealogists think that in my kid's life, my kids would potentially live to 150. In their kids' or grandchildren's life, they may not die because of where the advancements in genealogy is. There's, I think it was on NPR. I was listening. I listen to stuff all over the place. I really don't care political affiliation. If you have information that's interesting or relevant, I'm at least listen. It's about what was it? What's on? Maybe it was actually on the Dan Patrick show. A guy called in. He's writing a book, Mammoth. There's a genealogist. He's originally from Tampa, actually. He's like the Albert Einstein of this generation. And he's a genealogist. And he's figured out how to write genetics. Write the DNA. He can, no. You're not like the sheep. This isn't cloning. Cloning is copying DNA. He's writing DNA. Writing DNA. So you have your length of DNA, and with woolly mammoths, they've found them frozen, completely preserved, DNA intact, and they can pull the DNA out. And when they do that, there's some strands of the DNA that's missing. And he studied the DNA of this particular animal, mammal, the mammoth, and he's been able to write DNA to fill in the voids. And their plan is to impregnate an Asian elephant as a surrogate, not intermixing, using an Asian elephant as a surrogate for a woolly mammoth. You know, the things that you see at the historic museums that are only stuffed, or the skeletons, the fossils. He wants to bring them back to life. And again, there's ecological, from the theory is there's ecological benefits from the Arctic thermal layer and how they naturally acted when they were in the wild, kept the thermal layer in check. And this process should at least add another 100 years onto the thermal layer just by adding some woolly mammoth. So that's their idea, to release them in the Arctic and northern Russia and, areas that are that northern Arctic rim. So that's the theory. Again, check it out. It's definitely worth looking at. And check out my article on Kyrie, because it seems like, I don't know if I can't say my sources are better. I don't know. My sources are better. Or maybe sometimes the media is lazy. Sometimes the media don't ask the right questions or maybe they don't talk to the right people. Or maybe they don't see a point of reporting on certain things. Or maybe there's a lot of people that know and just don't report it. That happens a lot. There's information that, I've been given information before that I was asked to sit on and not report, told in confidentiality. And I can talk about those things in a roundabout way. But I don't spill the beans on it. Most journalists have had some similar experiences. So, but we got a great show tonight. I'm going to get a little bit into the Colin Kaepernick. I've kind of steered away from this. Getting into the Colin Kaepernick situation, because I think from the tones of things, of him not getting signed, him still, we're here in camp. We have, Joe Flacco go down in Baltimore, and you have Ryan Tannehill go down in Miami, and he doesn't get signed in either place. The list for Miami, the short list for that I've been told was obviously Jay Cutler, then Kyle Orton, then Tim Tebow, or Colin Kaepernick. Now, Tim Tebow, and I've also been told, even though that's their list, Tim Tebow and Colin Kaepernick were really never under serious consideration. That the majority of that whole Colin Kaepernick and Miami thing was a lot media-driven, kind of more media-infused than anything else. Wasn't truly, there wasn't truly interest in Miami. Baltimore, there was. Obviously, yeah. Harbaugh's brother coached him for 3 of the best years of his career. And I got basically looking at, and I have this provided from 2012 to 2016, provided by Pro Football Focus. They basically broke down statistics, overall statistics, of all quarterbacks with 500 or greater snaps. So Colin Kaepernick's grade, his grade with PFF versus the NFL average. So the 3 years under Harbaugh, his first 3 years in the league, 2012, 2013, 2014, he's above the league average. So he's an above average NFL quarterback, starter. And yes, he played in Super Bowls, divisional titles, playoffs, veteran quarterback. The next 2 seasons under 2 different head coaches, 2 different offensive coordinators, his numbers drastically change. 2015 being his worst season. Last year, they have him about 14 points below the NFL average of 75. So his last 2 seasons just weren't good. You can blame the 49ers ownership. You can blame the front office. You can blame the coaching staff. You can blame the talent that was around him or lack thereof. There's a lot of things that you can sit back and say, why did he have 2 bad seasons? But if you want to look at a couple of statistics as far as Kaepernick goes, one thing that is good, again, provided by Pro Football Focus, they said, and I quote, throughout the history of the NFL, among all 186 quarterbacks, to record at least 1,500 attempts throughout their careers. Colin Kaepernick ranks 5th best in passing touchdowns to interception ratio. 72-30. 5th best. The only quarterbacks out of 186 with touchdown to interception ratio better than Colin Kaepernick. The only 4: Aaron Rodgers, 1, Tom Brady, 2, Russell Wilson, 3, Derek Carr, 4. The 5 quarterbacks below him: Steve Young, Peyton Manning, Tony Romo, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan. Yes, that means he beat out Andrew Luck, Joe Montana, Phillip Rivers, and everybody else that wasn't named. We're talking historic quarterbacks there. So to say that, again, one of the big statistics when they're evaluating quarterbacks. One thing that you're really looking at, this is one of the big ones: touchdown to interception ratio. That's one of the big ones that is looked at. So he, again, 5th best in the NFL. In the history of 186 quarterbacks with 1,500 snaps or more, he's 5th best in touchdown to interception ratio. That's good. That's a very good thing. Kaepernick, again, a lot of people think this is something that's completely politically driven. Not all political. It's not all how owners feel about him. Because at the end of the day, guys can play. Teams will find a way around it. If they're at the top, one of the top 5, 10 players at their position in the NFL, the league tends to try to work around whatever the situation is. So for him to not be signed right now, it's telling. Now, as far as, again, here's another statistic. PFF. Highest percentage of pass attempts deemed uncatchable in 2016, last season. He led the league with 15.4%, ahead of Jameis Winston and Trevor Siemian. Again, that's uncatchable balls. He sails some balls, but guys that are taller, have a strong arm, and are somewhat mobile tend to have those sort of problems. Going too far, just not catchable. Some of them are throwaways, but there's more. Yards gained per quarterback scramble. He was first in the league with an average of 9.1 yards per quarterback scramble. Touchdown to interception ratio when under pressure, he was ranked 4th last year in the NFL. 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. 4th best. First at yards gained per quarterback scramble. 4th best touchdown to interception rate. Again, we just talked about a touchdown to interception ratio historically. So he's highest percent of pass attempts overthrown. He was 3rd in the NFL with 8.3%, behind Jameis Winston. and Tyrod Taylor last season. So he throws a lot of balls that are not catchable or incomplete. He's not, his percentage isn't great. His quarterback rating isn't great. But his touchdown to interception ratio is pretty good. That's what you want to know. Again, you're going to see some of these things change from player to player. His winning percentage over the last 2 seasons is garbage. But look at the team. They've had several major components over the last 2 years retire early or because of injury. Losing some guys from free agency, some guys because of disciplinary action. I mean, all teams are going to have attrition, but it does seem in some ways that the 49ers were hit unevenly with attrition after Harbaugh leaves. Is that Kaepernick's fault? No. Would he benefit from having Harbaugh there? Clearly he would have. Because the best years of his career were under Harbaugh, being 2012, 2013, being his best 2 of a grade by PFF of 81 or 80. 78, still above league average in 2014. And then it just fell off. Again, a lot of people talking about NFL ratings were down, and people are acknowledging, 60% of people acknowledge that they stopped watching because of the kneeling. So you're telling me that in games he didn't play in because he kneeled in a completely different game at a different time slot, that people stopped watching NFL because he was kneeling in some other game? That doesn't make sense. Now, the ratings were down across the board for the NFL. And I was on LinkedIn. A friend of mine, Dan Cilio, he put up some of his ratings. Again, in an election year for radio, when he was still here in Tampa, he was killing his ratings until it got to right around June, July. Sports falls off, but that's it was an election season, and that was ramping up. And it kind of carried into football season. It carried into September. And you look right there. Look at the political. Look at Ted and over at WFLA. You can see around the same time their ratings shoot up. That's the radio ratings. You see talk radio across the board go up. Bubba the Love Sponge up. Again, we're talking in a political season, in a presidential election season. People draw towards that because it comes once every 4 years. Same way like the Olympics. How many people take the World Cup? On average, do more people watch soccer around the world during a World Cup year than a non-World Cup year? Of course. Because the World Cup, it only happens every 4 years, and it brings in more casual fans. Of course. Elections are only every 4 years. You may only hear someone's political opinion every 4 years. And this was a very unusual, untypical election year. We have somebody that nobody predicted to be president. almost nobody, become president in ways that the standards of what people thought was president either didn't matter at all or mattered and didn't think he qualified because of the way he acted, the way he carried himself, the things that he said. It's up to you to make your own opinion on where you fall along there. Not for me to choose. But to say that because he kneeled, now he's in this position, it's ludicrous. His kneeling didn't kill the ratings. If it was going to hurt any ratings, it would have hurt 49ers ratings. And if it's his kneeling is the problem, well, one of the top 3 players on the Buccaneers, Mike Williams, is a top wide receiver. He was an All-Pro, Pro Bowl. He kneeled last year. He picked the wrong game to do it on Military Appreciation Day. He apologized for if it was offensive to the military people. They accepted his apology, evidently. He played the next game. He's playing this year. He's in camp. It didn't stop any of the other let me pull something up here real quick. It didn't stop any of the other players that that kneeled. They're still on their rosters. They're still playing. They're not stopped because of it. The college player from Nebraska, Michael Rose Ivy, he went undrafted. He was kneeling because they just didn't see him as essentially a draftable player. He's with the Bears. So to think that the kneeling is why people aren't watching, or the kneeling is why he's not getting a job is ludicrous. So if you think it's kneeling, throw that out the window. It's not the kneeling. And if you think he was kneeling in disrespect to the flag or the military, throw that out the window too. Because he was very evident of his purpose of kneeling. It had nothing to do with the flag, nothing to do with dishonoring the country or its military or what the flag stands for, in essence, but to create awareness around the situation, the very situation that Black Lives Matters has continued, went out to speak and protest on and create awareness on, and police brutality. That's why he did it. To support voices to an audience that may not get the full attention. Again, there's not a more diverse audience than the NFL audience. There's a protest today out in front of the NFL offices on Park Avenue in New York because Colin Kaepernick hasn't been hired. It's, from what I understand, it's mostly African American ticket holders, not exclusively African American ticket holders, but I mean they wanted to make a point that black money matters too. It should matter to the NFL. So, okay, so I'm getting a few people are upset. What Cutler? Why hire? Okay, Cutler wasn't a bad choice for Miami. Let me hit on that real quick. I'll go in more depth a little later. I got people on the line too that I want to bring on. You have to understand that there was a situation there in Miami that there was a relationship between Dolphins coaching staff and Jay Cutler. Adam Gase, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, was actually the coach for Colin Kaepernick or Jay Cutler for his best season to record. His best season of his career was under Adam Gase. So obviously there's a relationship there. And those of you in the business world, or those of you that have gotten some jobs that you might not otherwise have gotten, usually it's because you know somebody. It doesn't matter what company it is, if it's a government job or something like that. People that hire other people, they look for qualified people, but they're going to go usually they'll take the good qualified reference of somebody they know in-house. So you have a friend that works at a place and they say, hey, listen, I recommend you hire this person. They've applied. They're really good. You got a word of advice. They didn't have to call anybody. But when you have somebody inside that gives you their blessing, you're usually going to get that job over somebody else that's sometimes more qualified or is equally qualified. But it's because there's a certain level of comfort with feeling that decision will pay off more and work better than someone that nobody knows. A lot of people look good on paper. A lot of people sound good or look good in interviews. But you never know if they can do it. But if you have somebody that you work with on a daily basis, somebody you trust, somebody that you feel has a good character or able to feel the temperature of the room well, and they say, hey, this person's good, they'll fit right in with us. I've worked with them before. I've known them. I went to school with them. They'd be a great fit. I'm usually going to go with that person over someone else. Adam Gase, again, worked with Jay Cutler, his best season of his career. So it's not funny. It's not weird. And that's why the second in line was Kyle Orton. Again, he worked with Kyle Orton as well. So, Tim Tebow, again, with the Broncos. Worked with Tim Tebow too. So you're seeing that the people on this list are people that he's had. People usually bring in their own people, the people they know. That's why you see a lot of the guys in the league that they get fired, get hired again by their people. I mean, you saw Mike, Tampa's defensive coordinator. He was Mike Smith. He was a head coach in Atlanta. His offensive coordinator was Dirk Cutter. They got fired. Cutter got hired. He hired Mike Smith. If you want to go back further than that, Mike Smith was a defensive coordinator. Dirk Cutter was the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville. They got fired. And then they got, you see, they're still together. They take different paths, but they end up coming back together. They didn't reach out to find somebody that was uberly different. Oh, he's the latest trend. Let me hire. You don't know how that person's going to work. You think it's weird that Kyle Shanahan has his dad working with him? That's weird? Does anybody think that's weird? No. He's familiar with his father. His father got the job because he's a good coach, and it's his father. He's comfortable. He's familiar with him. Yes, he's going to have him. So, yeah, this is what I'm saying. Miami really wasn't an option. They weren't ever in true consideration of Colin Kaepernick. He was on a list of guys that they could contact. But so was Tim Tebow. And we see he's a AA baseball player in Port St. Lucie right now. He's actually not doing so bad. Given the circumstance, he's really not doing so bad. He's third on the team in ERA. And I think he's blasted like 7 home runs in AA. Since going to AA. I think he's in double-digit home runs for the year between AA and AAA. So, I mean, he's not terrible. He's not even bad. He's pretty mediocre. And if he gets called up to the 40-man roster at the end of the year, don't act surprised and don't think it's necessarily just a money grab for people for the Mets to sell tickets or jerseys. Because he's been doing what he needs to do to kind of honor that call up. Whether he will or not, we'll see. But all intents and purposes, he's doing well, all things considered. As far as the Ravens go, that's kind of a situation. From what I've read, and from what I've heard from people I've talked to in football, is they liked him. They really wanted to roll the dice on him. That he was truly being considered. Jim always has said good things about him. He thinks he should be on the team. I mean, he's publicly said it. What he said privately about Colin Kaepernick to his brother, I don't know. But obviously, he was an above average rating quarterback by Pro Football Focus for all 3 years he was with Harbaugh. Does he feel like he could have been a good fit there? He feels like he could have been a fit. I mean, you're saying, it's too mobile. It doesn't fit the system. No, he could work within that system. He just has to – they have to change the offense in a way to get higher completions, higher percentage throws. Go from being more mobile and a gunslinger to more controlled, more of a game manager. They don't want him to run as much. Obviously, when he runs, he's very efficient. Top in the NFL last year. Not even a good season for him, but top in the NFL on average yards per scramble. Touchdown to interception ratio, 4th in the NFL. So he can make plays, which you want. He scores more than he turns it over, which you want. So what's the deal? Well, he said he was not going to kneel this season, so that's not going to be a distraction. But he has been pretty outspoken about police. And again, not that it's unjustified. I mean, it's his right to say whatever the hell he wants to say. Freedom of speech. He feels that If he feels that police are modern day slave catchers, that's his opinion. He's perfectly entitled to it. Whether you or I or anybody wants to agree with it, that's your opinion that you're more than welcome to have. And you can use your free speech to speak out against it. And you guys can just get an argument over it. I guess that's what social media is for these days. At least Facebook, Twitter. But he was truly considered. Now, his public girlfriend decided to say that the owner of the Ravens is basically a modern day slave owner, which wasn't unique. I've heard many times before in this referencing. I don't think that's contextually accurate, but you could say that giving the demographic of the players in the NFL and pretty much NFL or NBA, the demographics there, you could see that it's slighted heavily towards African Americans, particularly in the NBA or in the NFL. And the situation being also the league that is the most violent, the most damaging to one's health, and has the least amount of guaranteed money than any other professional sport in the country. I mean, what solves a lot of things? I mean, you look at Chicago, and again, it's not all of Chicago. It's not the whole south side of Chicago. There's areas within the south side of Chicago that have the high incidence, high murder rates, gang activity, high black on black crime. It's within certain areas, not the whole thing. It's not a war zone for everybody, but for some it feels like it. And it is. That's the reality. But if you look at the situation, look at the funding that's going away from these neighborhoods. Look at the housing situations that are being lost. You think violence are up. Why? When you take people that were previously didn't get along and they were further apart, you had less conflict. You take away their housing, you take away funding, you take away jobs, and you put them in a situation where it's highly tense, and somebody that you didn't get along with before that lived in a different project or a different apartment building or a different neighborhood zip code altogether, and now they live 2 doors down from you, and you guys have been wanting to kill each other for years, or there has been conflict for years. They're 2 doors down from you. You don't think something's going to happen now they live closer? You're nuts. What we see again, I know they labeled the NFL the no fun league. The NFL never fined Kaepernick for kneeling. He was allowed to kneel. Other players were allowed to kneel. People were able to hold their fists in support, clap in support. Some players came out holding the American flag in support of their opposing view of it, which is weird. If you truly understand what he's kneeling for, how you would be in opposition to it is just says you really don't understand what he's kneeling for. And you don't understand the cause behind what was there to begin with. Most people aren't going to be willing to look into and understand things You know, you have to make things very plain, very basic to people for them to understand them. And again, it's not a knock to say most people are stupid or anything like that. It's not that. I'm not saying that's the case at all. But if you, like, for example, if you take jobs, trying to find jobs, okay, for those companies that have a one click, just send the resume over, one click, apply for a job, they'll get a substantially about 3 to 5 times more resumes than if it's 2 steps, where it's now you have to answer questions, a couple questions. Now, imagine how many less if it reroutes it to the company website. You have to fill out an entire application that basically has all the same information that's on the resume. And it takes you substantially longer. Think about how many less people do that. Again, some of that's for reason. Do you think houses in the suburbs sell for more money necessarily because they're better houses? No. You can find great houses in the city limits. There's properties right here, right in Seminole Heights, which is a historic neighborhood that's in the process of being built back up. There's houses that have higher value in Seminole Heights, which it's a historic area, which you could consider inner city if you wanted to. Truly, historic norms, closer to being inner city in Tampa, and it has home values equal to, or if not higher than those in West Chase or Tampa Palms or Hyde Park, South Hyde Park. But what's the difference? Values on prices of homes in the suburbs, some of it's because they don't want certain people there. You ever notice, like, you'll see concerts, right? Do you think Beyonce sells for that front row, for those front row tickets? Do you think she sells them $3,000 a pop because she wants her biggest fans up front? Come on, don't be that naive. You know? You think she wants all my single ladies up front? Do you think the people in her message for performance, the opening Super Bowl, that was her target market for that? Was who she wanted up front? Maybe yes. Hopefully yes. But probably not. You have to understand that businesses, again, these are all measures of profiling. These are all measures that have bias to them. What do they desire? And they can control that and not be scrutinized in a large part because of the price. They say, oh, because of the value. It's a higher value. You know? Maybe so. Maybe that is what it is. But I can tell you pricing of things can segregate people, and it does. So let's not be fooled by that. I'm gonna go to phone lines. Speaking of, let me bring in David in Atlanta. How are you doing tonight, David?
What's going on, man? How did you get into a real estate / Beyonce conversation?
Well, it's kind of, I'm just looking at it. I'm just trying to look at all angles, you know, find things to help make sense of some things that don't typically make sense, you know. Obviously, it was kind of revolving around the Kaepernick situation. again, the media is not reporting all of it. You're seeing a lot of bias. The people that don't want him in the league only talk about the Castro shirt and his girlfriend calling the owner a modern day slave owner. I mean, that's all they talk about. The other ones talk about, oh, he went to a Super Bowl. You know, he's been to the Pro Bowl. You know, and that's all they talk about. So it's not one or the other; it's both. And the thing is, if you break it down and look at it across the board, and you're talking about football, opinions, his views and opinions outside of football aside, he's one of the best 32 players at that position, and he doesn't have a job. And that is really irritating to some people, a lot of people. So, and that's a lot of what the protests today were about. I haven't got anything on number of show out, how effective it's going to be. Again, the weeks to come will say how effective it's going to be or not. But I don't know. What do you think about the situation? I haven't really talked much about the Colin Kaepernick having a job or not having a job in the league. But it's kind of, I feel like it's almost gotten to like a fever pitch now that the Ravens and Dolphins didn't sign him.
Yeah, I mean, it's off season. I mean, you know, he got to pay the consequences for what he did. And there's going to be consequences when you do stuff like that. So, I mean, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I never thought that he would be able to do that and not suffer some kind of consequence. I knew there was going to be a consequence to it. And so now he has to deal with the consequences of his actions. So, you know, some people don't agree with the consequences, but there were going to be consequences.
So now a lot of the narrative is if he's Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't have this problem. But if he's Aaron Rodgers, he's not getting cut.
That's true.
Either. So he's not going to probably be a free agent to begin with. And
yeah, I mean, all that's true, but part of being, this is what people don't understand, and this is what they don't, you know, when you're dealing with real sports fans, they don't get this, that part of being Aaron Rodgers, part of having that position is capitulating to what the people above you want you to do. You see what I'm saying? Whether you white, black, green, or purple, part of having that position in that structure is capitulating to what the people above you want you to do, or you don't ever become an Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers has already been vetted as a person that will capitulate or submit to what the people above him wants to do. That's how he becomes Aaron Rodgers. Same thing with Tom Brady. Same thing with Drew Brees. That's how that game works. So Kaepernick will never become an Aaron Rodgers because he's shown that he will not become subservient to what the people above him want. You know, from in certain aspects, he's just not going to go along with it. So then, therefore, he never will be Aaron Rodgers. And they know that when they start dealing with you. When you work in the HR department before, the only reason you get interviewed is to find out whether or not you fit the culture of that workplace. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're qualified to work there. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't understand that. They think they go into a job interview to find out whether or not they qualify. They can do research on you to find out whether or not you're qualified. They want to find out whether or not your personality fits with that workplace. And if they think that your personality doesn't fit with that workplace, then you don't get the job.
Yeah.
So Kaepernick's personality doesn't fit to make him into an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom. It doesn't matter how good he could play. His personality is not the right person. He doesn't have the right personality for that. Because he's shown that he's not going to capitulate to what they want out of him, where another athlete will, because that's just their personality. It's a personality issue, in my opinion.
Now, some when Michael Vick came out, and I don't think I talked about it on the radio. I think I did maybe 5 minutes on it. When Michael Vick came out and said, basically, if he cuts his hair and he dresses right, he could get back in the NFL. And And what I took from it, I know a lot of people, especially within the black community, they took it kind of as, again, Ray Lewis kind of said some of the similar things Mike Vick did. And there's been a lot of backlash to it. But I think where they're coming from is truly just on a football standpoint. If you're down for football and you want to play football and that's your goal, then you can set the other stuff aside, put it on hold or on pause on the back burner. Don't give it up, but look the part they want you to look. Kind of like what you were saying,
That's
concede.
what but they saying the same thing I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. Concede to what they want, so you can get what you want, and deal with all that other stuff in a way that isn't so out front. I mean, for all we know right now, Mike Vick is still fighting dogs, but he does a lot of work donating, volunteering for pet rescues and doing a lot of things for rescuing animals and stuff like that. So he's almost worked with PETA in light of pissing off PETA, Again, that's, he said, hey, I learned from what I did was wrong. I learned from it, and I don't want to see somebody else make the same mistakes I do. But the thing is, a lot of people in life, they just have to make their own mistakes. Their personality they're going to see you, but that was you. That's you. I'm not trying to be you. I'm going to be me. And sometimes they're going to have to go make their own mistakes or make the same mistakes you did to learn. And Kaepernick could be in one of those situations where he's going to learn that if he wants to have this sort of activism, have these political beliefs, and be publicly out the way that he is, that people that will write him a check to play football may not offer to write him a check to play football in the NFL. He again, some people say he's being blackballed. Blackballed isn't the right word. You could say there's maybe some collusion, which isn't outside the frame of possibility. I mean, we saw during the last lockout, the owners in the NFL got in trouble from colluding, and the president of the NFLPA sued them under collusion. So there was that problem before. If you want to say he's being blacklisted, I think that's different than being blackballed. But the feel between NFL owners are, he's not going to work out. But I'll tell you this: NFL, the seasons may only be 16 games, but it's a long season. People are going to go down, and there are teams that want to win. And, he probably feels it's just a matter of time before someone's desperate enough. Now, from what I've understood,
it's not gonna happen.
is the Ravens were prepared to make him an offer of $900,000, which is the veteran league minimum. He turned it down. The Broncos did make an offer, and it was in the process of a trade. They would trade for him, but he would have to take his $14 million contract down to $7 million of guaranteed money. He would probably have been starting last year as well, but he didn't want to do it. He turned that down as well. Now, when he turned down the $7 million, from what from people I've talked to, that's one thing that really rubbed and turned off front offices and people in the league, because the league hasn't felt like since Harbaugh left, they haven't felt like he's really a starting quarterback. And even at times when he was starting, he was more of a fantasy quarterback than a real NFL quarterback in their mind, in their estimation. So by all terms, at least half the league would have him as a backup. But you have to face it, the other half of the league are backups that have starting jobs. That's basically what the NFL turns out to be, because there's not enough elite level quarterbacks to take the starting jobs. There's 32 of them, but there's not 32 elite quarterbacks in the league.
Yes, quarterbacks in the league. Yeah, you're right.
So
Yeah, you're right about
is he
that.
one of the best
But
32 right now?
what I'm saying
Absolutely.
is that
But they, from a business standpoint.
I mean, what I'm saying is that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, what I'm saying is that, like, people can spin a whole bunch of statistical reasons why he's not starting, but it all comes down to the fact that what he's about, the NFL doesn't want to be aligned with that. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, what he stands for and how it's really people's perception of what they think he stands for. The NFL just doesn't want to be aligned with that because they understand their core audience. And no matter what anybody tells you, the core audience of the NFL is a middle-aged white guy.
Yeah.
That's their core audience.
And from what I've understood,
and they don't want to be aligned with that.
From what I heard in the discussion between ownership and the front office in Baltimore was, hey, you know, we can make this offer $900,000. We could throw the dice here, but when he was outrightly going to deny the $900,000, the veteran minimum, and they were looking at losing box seating, like their premium seating, corporations. You know, that's the biggest money of tickets. Now the fans would come back.
Yeah,
they may lose them, but if they win, the fans are coming back. So winning will fix that problem, but corporations may not because they don't want to be in line, like what you were saying, with his views. And the thing is, I think he could be politically active the same way he is right now. The I Know My Rights, I Know My Rights camp. I think he could be doing that. He could have kneeled, but I think the big problem is like the stance that he's more so taking towards direct response that he's taking towards police, and lately of ownership of the NFL owners, the thoughts of them. I think those were the two bigger things on the outside. If had he not called police modern day slave catchers and decided to wear the pig cop socks and call the owners modern day slave owners, then, but that's it. To do that, it's counterproductive. So you think they're slave owners, but you're signing up to be one of their slaves. I mean, I don't get what you're saying. Like, you'll be a slave for a right price. I don't get I don't get the reasoning behind that. What, you know. And
I mean, he didn't say that. His girl implied that. She didn't actually say that. She just implied it. That's people's perception of what she put up. She never explicitly said that.
But we know how.
You know what I'm saying? So you got all this stuff.
But the public perception is he co-signs it. The public perception is he co-signed it because he didn't distance himself from it, and he didn't say anything that he didn't agree with it. So they're assuming because it's his public girlfriend that he's co-signing it. Saying nothing is saying something.
I mean, you're 100% right. Like I said, it's people's perception of what they think he stands for.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to be aligned with that. It really has nothing to do with his statistics or whatever, because everybody knows this guy can play backup quarterback for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
So, but the issue is that, like I said before, is that he has made a decision to not go along with what the people above him want him to do. And that's just the decision that he's made. And so that essentially has put him outside of the loop. And that's why you see the Ray Lewis and you need to change your hair, and because they understand that to get along with these people, you have to go along with what they want out of you. That's how you get a job, is you go along with the people on the job want out of you. And so, you know, that's part of what this is about. And so he made a decision. He got to live with his decision as a grown man. But I know that the average NFL fan, they'll come back to football, but he's so much of a polarizing figure because of his views and how he's overtly with his views. They don't want to be involved with that shit because they don't need Kaepernick to make the NFL go. They don't need him.
Yeah.
So if he never plays NFL football again, it doesn't matter. And that's what people got to understand about. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, people got to understand their position in an organization. Like, the organization don't need you. You need the organization. So if he never plays again, you know, in week 10 of the NFL, nobody's going to be talking about the guy because it doesn't matter.
In week 10, nobody should be.
Is the NFL roll going?
Unless they,
but I'm just saying, it's not like it's not, because the NFL is a real organization. Like, it is a very thorough organization. No one person, it don't matter if it's Tom Brady or Drew Brees or whoever, no one person will stop what they're doing. It's built to roll over people. That's how they built it.
And just an example of that, they're just started the process of paying out on these lawsuits for CTE. And again, it wasn't, so people understand the lawsuits around the CTE. It wasn't because they were getting hurt and brain damage from playing football. It's because the league and the teams outright to their face lied to them about their health for decades. That's why they're sued. That's why they're winning. So, but the NFL, again, the NFL, as far as a business, as a way it is, has made more millionaires of coaches, front office people, and players, of course, than any other professional league in the world.
All the money's at the top, though.
It is. Basically, anything you look at, the top, out of any industry, anything you look at, top 20 is going to make almost all the money, and the bottom 80% is going to do most of the work, but make the least amount of money. That's really the way. Exactly. But if you can't, nobody could financially sustain 80% getting all the money and 20% doing all the work. It wouldn't work that way. You'd have too many people making too much money. It don't have to be an inverse. Yeah. It
don't have to be an inverse of 80-20. But what I'm saying is that the NFL is set up to where, all the profits essentially stay at the top, and the labor takes all the risk to make the profit for the owners. And like, I would never play NFL football. To me, it's not a good deal.
Yeah, and I'm
taking all the risk, and you making all the money.
And I was kind of looking at that.
I don't get that.
I know more people were saying guaranteed contracts, but you have to understand with a sport that people are so much more prone to injury. It's not financially feasible to guarantee the whole contract. They would entertain doing full guaranteed contracts, but they would be for probably a maximum of 3 years and for a lot less money than what they're getting right now. As the potential would be gone. So, like, for example, if we took Kaepernick's contract, his $100 and some million contract, and air quotes there, when it's really like a $36 million guarantee, it's a $36 million contract is what it was, with potential of being more.
Yeah.
So if we look at it like that, he's only guaranteed $36 million, but it's $36 million over the course of 5 years or whatever it was, to play in 16 games a year, which he didn't even do that. The last 2 years of that contract, last 2 of the last 4 years of that, like the last year, they basically said, we'll pay you $14 million, just go away. That's basically what they told him. So half of his contract almost, they said, we'll just go away. We'll give you the money, bounce. $14 million they didn't care about because they didn't want him on the roster and they didn't want him to play there. They didn't want to deal with, again, more of the comments that he's made that has kind of hurt him in public perception have came after he's not been on a team. Which, if I don't think Colin Kaepernick wants to be in the NFL. To be honest, I don't think he wants to be. I think he wants to be associated with the NFL, and he wants publicity through the NFL because it's building on what he does. I've heard people question him in the locker. He's really a reserved guy, kind of antisocial in a way in the locker room. But again, people talk. Maybe he is to some guys and he isn't to others. But I mean, if first of all, if he was good and if he was so good, see, that's the thing is, like, you can do bad things in the league. You can almost choke your girlfriend to death and body slam her on a bed full of automatic weapons that are loaded and blacken her eye, and you can still play the next season. And then get a contract doing MMA. But
it's not the same though, because it's not an attack on their structure.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like you can like Leonard Little, you can catch a drunk driving charge and kill a woman on the road.
Yeah.
And they'll still let you play because you're not attacking their structure. Well, because I tell people this all the time. Professional athletes don't exist to play sports. They exist to social condition people. That's Colin Kaepernick's job. His job is to make white people think this country can't be this bad because we got a bunch of black guys making a lot of money playing football. So once he gets away from that narrative, now we got a problem. Because that's his real job. His job is not to play football. His job is to make white people in Nebraska think that America really can't be that bad because you got a bunch of black guys that make $1 million to play football.
Yeah.
America really can't be that bad. So what is this guy talking about?
Right. Okay.
And that's his real job. Once he gets away from that, then we got a problem.
I got a Facebook response here.
And that's what nobody wants to talk about.
Facebook response. It says, the one thing that has never been tolerated in this country is people wanting racial equality. He's lucky he is just out of a job. The powers in this country, only one generation ago, they'd had murdered him by now. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I don't think it's about racial equality. It's about that he's not doing his job as a social conditioner. Because Kaepernick's platform is not racial equality. Because racial equality is a platitude. It don't even really mean anything. But his job is to socially condition white people. And once you get outside of that as an athlete, they don't need you because they can find another black person that's going to do it.
The thing is also,
they got Ray Lewis.
But what has the thing is that the one thing that I questioned at the beginning when he protested is, after you protest, what are you going to do? You know, you have to have action.
What do you mean? What are you going to do?
You have to have action after you protest, is to create awareness. And awareness is supposed to spawn action. And the action moves forward for the good of it, to get the action. But what is what he's doing, where has his ultimate end game at this point even been to get action? Because it seemed like he protested.
But that may not be.
He shared his views.
But that may not be his job.
Yeah.
But that may not be his job, though. See, everybody got a position to play.
Yeah.
So if his position is I can use my platform to break this social conditioning, then he can do that, and you got other people on the ground that take action.
Well, I mean, like,
his job may be
obviously,
that may not be his job to take action.
Well, here, if we take this back to, because the Black Lives Matter movement and the movement, the marches and protests of Martin Luther King aren't all that different. And we saw with Martin Luther King, when he was in Atlanta, he tried to get the police to move on them, to arrest them, to create acts of violence on them so they could get it on camera. But the police chief in Atlanta wouldn't fall for it. But in Alabama, they found their mark. And they had the police chief unleash fire hoses and dogs on children. That sparked national attention, obviously obscenely, and got President Kennedy's attention, and they had to move on it. And that was all before the March on Selma. But you see, he got action. But the problem is today is we've already have had the protest, and the protest already came after action. The negative action that usually is the police maiming, hurting, or beating its citizens that it's supposed to be protecting. In this case, police killing people, primarily African Americans from the news coverage. And what has happened as far as laws, or did Obama move? What did he do that was outstanding in any sort of way? The way Kennedy sent the army to assist. You know, that's the thing is, like, we're not getting the same action in return from more demeaning or more violent forms of action on the citizens. You're just not getting the same response.
Yeah, but this will mean you have a disagreement with how we perceive the situation. First, Kaepernick's not a full-time activist, and MLK was. He was a full-time activist.
Well, I'm just talking about like Black Lives Matters and MLK.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is that from the standpoint of Kaepernick and what he was doing, to me the issue is that, like I said before, and this is what a lot of people don't want to really wrap their head around, is that the black athlete's job in this country is the socially conditioned white people that this country really can't be that bad, because we have these uber successful black people playing professional sport. And so once you get away from that is when they have a problem with you, which they can't deal with you anymore, because that's your real job. Kaepernick's real job is not to play football. It's the socially conditioned white people. And so what white people's issue with Kaepernick is that he's breaking their particular perception of how this country really is, because their attitude is, well, why are you worrying about it? You're making so much money.
Mm-hmm.
And so his job is not to be a full-time activist like MLK or to create some kind of program. His job is to play football and to convince white people the country can't be that bad. That's LeBron's job. That's Curry's job. That's Jameis Winston's job. That's all their job. That's really what they're here to do. When they get off of that particular platform is when we have a problem.
Yeah.
And that's why the teams don't want to have anything to do with them, which is the same reason why sports got rid of Muhammad Ali. When he said, I'm not going to go to Vietnam to fight because a Vietnam person never called me the N-word, now we have a problem. We don't have a problem for anything else, but now we have a problem because what you're doing is you're breaking the social conditioning, because what he was supposed to do was go to war and act like everything was fine. That's what he was supposed to do. The same way Elvis went to war, the same way Joe Louis went to war. That's what his job was. And so to me, that's the real issue. But the sports people don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about his girlfriend, and they don't want to get it because their job is to socially condition white people. That's why they exist. So they don't want to lose their job either.
Yeah, people are very comfortable staying in their comfort zone. People are not.
Yeah.
See, that's why. I think this election says a lot of things about people. To have somebody that says and does things that is so overly against what is seen as acceptable to be a president, to lead the country, say, I'd rather have that than the other options, says a lot, because that's saying a lot of what their comfort zone is, or and that's, I talked a little bit about that. There's a book called Malcolm Gladwell. It's a book called David and Goliath. And the big story was, the big theme behind it, and the understanding is who's the underdog and who's the favorite. And people tell the story of David and Goliath as Goliath is the favorite in this battle. But he truly wasn't. He was the underdog the entire time. Just nobody could see it. Because everybody's understanding was they were going to have hand-to-hand combat with swords and a brutal fight. But David wasn't big enough, strong enough to wear the armor, let alone wield a sword and fight a guy twice his size. So what did he do? He took his gun to a knife fight, and he won because people didn't expect him to go shoot Goliath. He expected him to have a knife fight. Everybody expected the knife fight. But David's like, I don't use knives and I can't wear the armor. I'm going to do what I do. And I can chuck rocks with my sling. And he did. He killed him. And that's the thing is, like, clearly, if we understood what his plight was and his intentions, then you look at it in a different way. You know, he truly was should have been the favorite the entire time, because he didn't intend on going there and having a knife fight or clashing armor. He was going to run up on him, slinging rocks the same way he did with lions and bears and stuff trying to eat sheep. So a guy that's standing still in armor is a bigger, you know, sitting duck than a bear or a lion running, you know? He's like, yeah, I got this. And he did. But we didn't see past that. So the unconventionalness of what he did, we underestimated the importance of that for victory. Where everybody saw these as the bad things, and I agree. I didn't think that those were things that are deserving of a president. I did not vote for him. That's how I felt. But enough people felt that didn't matter in that way. The way that he's not, the fact that he's not willing to play by their rules meant more to them than playing by the rules. They didn't care if he met the mold of what a president should look like. He met the mold of what the action that they wanted to have. Maybe not completely in the context that he led himself in, or the way he held himself, or all of his opinions were the same, but enough to where it was basically, I'm not going to play by the rules. I'm going to make it better. And he gave no plans the entire time. The biggest turnoff, that's probably one of the biggest turnoffs for me, is I didn't know what his position was on really anything, because he gave no plans. We're going to have better health care. How? Or taxes, changing tax. How? What are you doing? Well, we're going to be safer, more secure. What? Building a wall? They're already digging under and going over already. What makes you think a wall changes anything? They can't keep drugs out of prisons with walls and 2 layers of a fencing that have sensors on them and razor wire. But you're telling me that a wall is going to do that? They literally have tunnels in border towns that are 25 miles away from the border that have rented spaces, dug a 40-mile tunnel to an area where there's new building going on, and literally doing a 40-mile tunnel under the ground, which isn't affected by a wall at all, to come up in a house that's brand new built. All the dirt's coming out. Nobody's thinking about it because they're building a new house. So you're thinking, okay, that the wall is a metaphor. And people want that metaphor of safety. But the wall is not giving them safety. It's wasting money. It's not helping. But people don't care because he's insistent on it, and they want insistent on what they want. That's what they see. It's not him. They don't want him. They want the idea of what he wants, or the idea of his actions. He's not going to go by what they want to do. That's what they're attracted to, not him in general. He's very off-putting himself, what he says. Some people cheer to it, but it's a kind of a crowd mentality. You know, the ballots and voting is a very private and quiet thing. You know, I mean, you don't know what anybody voted. Those aren't made public. We're not elected officials. Our votes aren't for people to see. Elected officials are, but ours aren't. So people could say they did or didn't vote for anybody, and they could have. We don't know. We'll never know. But that's it. That's how you see, they can go in, they could publicly be against it, not like him, but feel like at the last minute, because of announcements about emails, because of fake news or, manufactured news, that now they're going to go a different direction than what they were going to, or just not vote. This is where things change. So Colin Kaepernick, again, he's not exceptional enough of it. He can be one of the best. Again, he's one of the best 32, and he doesn't have a job because a lot of ways it seems like what you're saying, he's kind of outworn his welcome amongst those that are willing to pay him to do a job, when supporting him doing that job in essence is indirectly supporting his views that may be off-putting to their largest demographic or client base. So
definitely.
Now, again, some studies have come out in the last few weeks. One study saying that the likeliness of developing CTE from playing football, from what the research shows, is not great or something substantial enough to where it should want to drive people away from playing football. But then a new study came out after that. It was basically, was it 90? I think it was 90-something percent. I'll put it that way. It's 90-some percent of those former NFL players that died, again, only died after, 90-some percent of them that donated their brains for research had CTE to some degree. Whether it resulted in any part to their death or not, regardless, there was some CTE there. So what does it say? I mean, we understand that if there's anything that people do in life, they're going to, and they like to do it, they're going to keep doing it. I mean, for decades, we've understood smoking is bad for your health. Drinking is bad for your health. Drugs are bad for your health. Eating too much or consuming too much of anything is bad for your health. I mean, for decades, Trump's trying, he want to get these mining jobs back. Being a miner is bad for your health. Being a police officer is bad for your health. We still have people do it because they're getting paid to do it, or they like to do it. They will continue to do it by choice because they get something out of it in return. Gratification from money, gratification from pride, gratification from other sort of success or satisfaction. They're going to keep doing it. So if they like football, they love football, they're passionate about playing football, a lot of the guys said that they would absolutely take the same path, play the game again, and wouldn't discourage their children from playing it. On the other hand, there's some that say, I would never want them to play the game. I went through it, and I went through all that stuff so they wouldn't have to do it. So I don't know. Where do you stand on this? Do you think it's something, from what you understand, is it something you think is remarkable to where it will ultimately have a lasting negative effect on the NFL, or is it just something that they're going to be more cautious of moving forward?
I think, to me personally, I think if they don't change either helmet technology, which I think get rid of the hard helmet, which I think can decrease a lot of the head-to-head collisions if they get a soft helmet. If if they don't do that, I think the game probably not going to last like another 20, 25 years. You know, I just think that it's the long-term value is going to be going away because you're going to start to see more and more research come out on CTE because they have the ability now to recognize it in brain tissue. And you're getting a lot of football players that are agreeing to donate their brains to science after they die. And so what you're going to have is like a medical track record, kind of like you start to have with smoking. And so I think that's going to be an issue where the sport is going to start to be seen as really, really dangerous. So either they're going to have to change helmet technology and go to a helmet that doesn't kind of, to me, persuade people to aim with their head as much as they're doing now, or the game not going to last like another 20, 25 years.
So you're kind of, you think it's kind of could be reaching its peak?
I think it reached its peak a long time ago. I personally think the NFL is in a decline, but there's still so much money in it. It doesn't matter. Like it's, you know what I'm saying? There's still a multi-billion-dollar organization, but I think NFL is on the decline. You know, I really do. But like I said, you know, a company can be on the decline and still be worth billions of dollars. But I think they hit their apex. I want to say, you know, late 90s, early 2000s. You know, and then they're kind of like on a decline now because, like you were talking about earlier, is you're starting to kind of see the drop off in television viewing and things of that nature. It doesn't have anything to do with Kaepernick. I just think people are not watching TV like they used to, and the kind of TV that they used to watch is not as trackable as Nielsen TV. So it's going to start to cut away from a lot of the TV revenue that the NFL was getting because you got to be able to track all that stuff to justify the spend.
And that's where I don't think that we've been able to understand or see to any sort of degree right yet if they've reached the point of diminishing returns. CTE could be part of that.
There yet.
It could be.
Yeah, they're not there yet. They're a long way away from there. But I just, like I said, I don't think they're at. You know, you have a company, it hits the apex, and then it starts to go downhill, even if it's going downhill just at a very gradual rate.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think the NFL is at its. The NFL, for a fact, I know is not at its apex. Neither is the NBA. Neither is Major League Baseball.
You think even with
be going downhill,
with the popularity in the UK and Europe going up, in Mexico, and Canada, with the NFL, and now China is they're going to do a game in China. Do you think it's globalization? Do you think that's something that you don't think that's
no, because
do you think it maybe caused it to plateau more than decline?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. No, I think they're declining because this is my own opinion. Is I think the NFL game, American football, is a very specific game that only Americans and maybe Western Europeans will buy into it.
Yeah. Because
essentially the game is a bunch of guys running into each other full speed, knocking each other down and get back up and doing it again. Like that's really the core of the game. It's really not that complicated. So I think Asians and other cultures, I just don't think they're up to really get into football like that.
I know.
Because I think there's something about the American and the Western European psyche that makes football make sense to us.
I have friends from Africa and from South America that just don't see the point in it at all.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
It's like it's so violent.
Exactly. But it makes sense to us because we was raised in it.
Yeah.
But somebody that wasn't raised, they're like, this is dumb. You know, like I know people in Africa also, they're like, football is stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they don't see the skill in it or anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But they love soccer, but they just don't get America. I think the market for American football really is very small. It works in America because there's so much money in America.
Yeah.
But it's a very small market.
But it's American.
Football.
And I was talking a few weeks back. You know, the American sports that get the most money have the most American athletes. The NBA or the NFL, pretty much everybody's from the U.S. You got a couple guys from Africa, a couple from Canada, a couple from Mexico, a couple from Europe, like 2 from Australia, but that's it. It's pretty much all Americans. Everybody's from the U.S., you know, for the most part. That's in the league, especially the best players. The NBA, it's second, but it still has, for the most part, the best players in the league are from the U.S. So that's consumable.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, you start to see more of a decline. Most of the best players are from Latin America, you know?
Yep.
A little less. It's not so far away from home. Hockey, again, not so far, but most of those guys are from Canada and Russia. Not as high.
Exactly.
MMA, most of the guys are from Brazil or Europe that you see. Canada, that are the highest, the best in the sport. So again, boxing, highest and best, Latin America, Europe, not the U.S.
Europe.
Again, these, we look at who were the best athletes, where the best stars in the sport from. You're gonna see if the sport has more stars from outside the U.S., less of an interest in that sport. I mean, I think golf has gotten kind of a resurgence after, in some ways, a small resurgence after Tiger, because 3 of the top 5 golfers are young guys from the United States. So people can rally around that more. See, this is why I said for the sport of boxing. Again, I say a lot of things that are shots at Deontay Wilder and his people. But again, it's not unconstructive. It's irritating as shit to me to have somebody that's as physically imposing, that is skilled enough at the sport to be among the top 5, 10 in the sport, but nobody knows who the hell you are in your home country. Like, stop running your mouth on YouTube and Twitter bullshit. You're not doing what you need to do to attract the demographic to your sport. He can't sell out major venues outside of Alabama, and he keeps fighting in Alabama because of that. The times that he fights outside of Alabama is because he fought for a title or he was on the undercard for somebody else's fight. He is not an attraction in the sport of boxing. He has 1 belt in a division that I would say has the least amount of talent in the top 5 than any of the other organizations. But he steadily wants to talk about, I wanted to fight Klitschko. Never made that happen. Wanted to fight Joshua. Still hasn't made that happen. Povetkin, we could say, yeah, he was dirty. But you know what? He was dirty. You could have still fought him. No one stopped you. You could have said, I'm still taking the fight. Still want to fight him. You didn't. Ortiz has been sitting there. You know, I mean, there's been enough guys in the top 5, 10 of the world rankings, enough opportunity for him to fight them, and he doesn't. He fights boo-boo. Nothing. Ghost shit. Boo-boo. That's what he fights. He fights guys that aren't even in the top 50 in ranking, and all of a sudden, by the time he fights them, they're in the top 5 of his organization, top 50 or top 20. It's ridiculous. And he says, "Oh, I don't want to fight Dylan White." Throwing your cockroach at me, dude. Dylan White is probably the best competition he would have faced to this point, and he's offered Dylan White because he's not done enough in the sport of boxing to get a bigger fight than that. Just because you have a strap, you took the path of least resistance. You beat Bermain Stavern, who found his way into it too. He fell into it. You fell into him. It's still the only guy he hasn't knocked out. And Bermain Stavern still hasn't fought anybody significant since him. So, but anyways, so I'm gonna get a little bit more into that on boxing because I'm gonna do a boxing overview. But thanks for joining us tonight, David. So, but I'm gonna get into boxing. If you guys want to call in, we still have a little bit of time to call in. 347-237-5539 is the number to call in. if you want to call in. All right, I got a few people here on the line. They're just listening. And that's okay too. 347-237-5539. If you just want to listen to the show, you can listen to the show. It's fine. If you message me like these people have, you just listen. That's fine. I'm cool with that. But hold on there. It'll be into the overtime segment when I see some more people calling in. I'm going to do my boxing overview real quick, so bear with me. We've got about 3 minutes still if you want to call in. 347-237-5539. If you want to call in, you'll have to hold till after this segment. But I want to do an overview. Okay, I get upset with Wilder and the people around him. Not because I don't like him or I don't like his prospect or I don't think he deserves to be in the top 5, 10 amongst the top of boxing as a heavyweight, which I think he does. He definitely deserves to be in the top, considering the top of heavyweights in boxing. He just does. It's undeniable. He hasn't fought anybody of significance, but still, he's imposing enough. He's been able to put together an undefeated record and has knocked out everybody but one person. It's not something that's easy to do. Again, as far as the guy, and as far as the guys that he's fought and he's beat, none of them are any significant. 38 fights, 37 knockouts.
Seconds.
But if I rack off the names of the guys that he's beaten, none of them really hold much water. I mean, even the guys that I think are decent fighters, decent boxers, still aren't like top 5. I mean, if you're considered, since he won the belt, he won the WBC Continental America's heavyweight title. He won that against Kelvin Price back in 2012, which put him in line. To fight and defend for it. He defended it in 2013 twice successfully. And then went on to have his before Bermane Stiverne, his most significant fight of his career was against Malik Scott. And he beat Malik Scott. He's one of only the 3 losses that Malik Scott has. He's lost to Deontay Wilder. Again, that fight was in Puerto Rico in 2014. He's lost to not well-known English fighter, Derek Chisora. Again, that was for the vacant WBO international heavyweight title. He lost there. And he's lost most recently to Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz is another one of those guys I just mentioned that Wilder could have fought. He's the top fighter, top heavyweight in Cuba. He's ranked top 5 in the world by top 5, top 10 in pretty much every boxing ranking that you see. Pulev has been right there too. Has been one of the guys that he's could have fought and hasn't. Joseph Parker, he holds a belt. He is considered kind of low-hanging fruit for some. That some think in the boxing world. He got he got his title through kind of an upset sort of victory. And he fought for the vacant WBO title back in 2016 against Andy Ruiz Jr. Andy Ruiz is not a top 10 heavyweight. Then defended it against somebody that shouldn't even have a title shot. Then, more so in the fashion of upset, beat Huey Fury, who was undefeated, and a lot of people thought had prospect, and still is the only loss. Or is now defending against Huey Fury. I'm sorry. That would be as more of the upset victory. But again, it's another one of the belts, like Wilder has, that has been historically known belt. Yeah. So Huey Fury. I'm sorry. Huey Fury is the guy he fights on the 23rd of next month. Is where it's scheduled to fight in Manchester Arena over in England. So in the UK. So he we'll see that there. We'll see how he fares there. But Huey Fury is related to Tyson Fury. So to think he feels that he'll have an option. I'm sorry, I looked at that wrong. But yeah, Huey Fury's his next fight. So again, he's fought against guys. Andy Ruiz is not top 10. Most have him top 15, maybe top 20 in the world. As far as U.S., I mean, he's ranked higher. He's ranked by this one I'm looking at. He's ranked just under Malik Scott and just above Eric Molina. It's a pretty big gap. Now, 11th right now in the U.S. on this one ranking I'm looking at is Gerald Washington, which was Wilder's last fight. A guy that, and Gerald Washington, after losing to Wilder, fought Gerald Miller, another undefeated heavyweight, who has been moving up. The world ranking is 11 here. He got knocked out by him too. So again, Dominic Brazil has been one of those guys he could have fought against. Dominic Brazil's only loss is to Anthony Joshua. And Dominic Brazil is also under Heyman. Gerald Miller, I don't know who his promoter is. Greg Cohen. Okay. All right. I'll figure that out. But he's been moving up. But there's not a lot of major U.S. talent known in boxing. Yeah, that's why we don't see a huge fall. I mean, the whole idea behind McGregor and Mayweather really says that at the welterweight level, super welterweight, light welterweight, whatever it is, at the welterweight level, round there, they couldn't find somebody that would push the needle enough for Mayweather to make big money off of. He just couldn't. I think Berto was a poor choice. He was a poor choice And it really turned off a lot of people. It was better for him not to fight somebody than to push and fight Berto. But he did. He won, in very boring fashion, just like most of his fights. But it just says they had to go outside the sport to find somebody, the big enough draw to bring in the money he wanted. And by the way, there are still plenty of seats available if you want to go see Mayweather, Conor McGregor. Plenty of seats. Actually, talking with somebody in Vegas, they were saying actually so many seats that are available, because usually, like, if you're a fighter or a manager or something like that, they'll have allotments of seats for you, for your family or friends. It's usually set aside before the fighters, but families or friends. And as of right now, on the 26th, the fight for the 26th of this month, they have not sold enough seats to be able to give the fighters and their people tickets. They haven't sold enough tickets to the fight. Oh, they're going to get the pay-per-view buys, but they're not getting the tickets. See, they struggled on the Berto fight and on the Pacquiao fight to sell the tickets they wanted. I think they started way too high on the ticket price, and they didn't come down quick enough. And that's maybe the case now. They're going to have to start selling. They're going to have to, they have like nosebleed section seats for $500. But they don't want to bring them down too low, because then they're going to get scalped. That's what they're trying to avoid, is scalping. If it's too affordable, they'll get scalped and they'll lose money there. So it's a balancing act. When do you drop the price? How do you work it out? If they work out something where you buy your ticket, but you have to attend, but they make it more reasonable, maybe they get more people in. I don't know. I think that's a smart option. It's a one-way ticket, a one-sided ticket for the purchaser. You can't buy it for a group. If you buy it for a group, you have to be able to provide the names of those, and they're only available at will call, where they have to show their ID. And you get those as you come up. You use your ID almost as the ticket. So that's there's different things that they can do to try to work around that. What they're willing to do, I don't know. We'll have to see. The next big fight that's coming up is on the 19th, which will be in the Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln, where we'll see Terrence Crawford. He'll be defending his title and looking to capture the rest of the remaining titles in the super lightweight division. He fights Julius Indongo, a guy that's Julius Indongo. For those of you, he's undefeated right now, and he's had kind of some interesting wins. He wins the IBO World Lightweight title, kind of in an upset fashion, going to Russia to beat Edward Trovanowski. Then he goes to the UK to fight for the IBF, the IBO, and WBA. lightweight titles. Kind of gets his unexpected upset victory over Ricky Burns, who was favored to win. And now he's going to go to Lincoln, Nebraska. Home state, Terrence Crawford. And he's going to try to work to get the WBC and the WBC and WBO belt away from Terrence. But here's the unique thing. For those of you casual boxing fans, again, some people get turned off from talking about boxing. I get upset about some things, and I just want to break it down for fans so you guys really understand. I mean, we're here in the overtime segment now. I want you to really understand some of these nuanced components, some of the story behind these athletes, so you can understand the sport. You know, if you understand the players, the athletes involved, it makes more sense. So I just want to put some of these things into context for you. So you maybe hear me upset or see me on Twitter. I'm taking shots at Wilder. Again, those, they may seem like they're angry or upset or demeaning or hurtful type comments, but I'm trying to put them in the most loving sort of way. They don't feel that way. That's their perception. People are going to have whatever perception they choose to have. Right? But truly, I want him to do the best that he can and be well known. You know, I honestly think if I was in charge of marketing him, I would do a better job than who he has now. I am supremely confident in that. And if he wants to talk numbers and me do that, I'm completely open. Completely open. But Terrence Crawford is very unique because a lot of times the fighters, they'll have certain stance. It'd be the southpaw, where they're a left-handed dominant fighter, or they're orthodox, which is a right-handed dominant fighter. Okay? He is what you would see is he's kind of like a switch hitter. He's more orthodox, usually, depending on the fight, but usually he's an orthodox fighter. But he can, everything he can do orthodox, he can do from the southpaw standpoint. He's like your ultimate switch hitter in baseball. He has power from both sides of the plate, and he can hit from average from both sides of the plate. It's completely unique. And he's talented and skilled enough to be able to do this. He's an outlier in that sense. And another thing is, as he's went up in weight, his ability to knock people out is also kind of like a baseball player. Most Major League Baseball players learn how to and start to actually hit more significant home runs once they get into the major leagues, because then they can focus on that. In the minors, that's not the big deal. Hitting home runs isn't the big deal. It's being able to field the ball, to hit for average, and to make plays. If you can hit home runs, that's great. But most major league, most professional baseball players learn how to hit their home run and get their home run stride once they get into the major leagues. Aaron Judge is a great example of that. You know, he wasn't hitting home runs like that in the minors, and he wasn't hitting home runs like that last year when he was called up. But he's figured out his stride, worked on his swinging, his hit, and the guy's just so big and so powerful. that if he connects, it's gone. And that's how it is. Terrence is skilled enough. He has power and he knows how to do it. So as he's moved up and weight and moved up with competition, he's still able to knock guys out from either right-handed dominant or left-handed dominance, either side is switch hitting, orthodox or southpaw, is completely unique. Felix Diaz, when he fought him, he only had one loss, and that was for the WBC super lightweight title. And he had also held a WBC title in the past as well. Before that, Henry Lundy, who people thought might be a problem for him, has held WBO titles, the WBC international title, and he beat him for the WBO in Madison Square Garden. People thought that Victor Postal was going to be too much for him. Just going to be too much for him. Guy comes in undefeated, 28-0, after capturing the WBC belt by knockout, not TKO, literal knockout of Luis Matisse, who's a guy that doesn't knock out too easily. He's also held the WBC belt, international belt, on a couple different occasions as well. So a guy, quality fighter, comes in undefeated, gets a strap from him. I mean, to get the WBO, he beat Ricky Barnes. The guy that he's facing, that got a strap, had to beat Ricky Barnes. He also beat Ricky Barnes. Ndongo got a unanimous decision over him in 12 rounds. Crawford also to get the WBO. So, again, that was one of the fights that he didn't knock somebody out in. But we see that given the level of competition he's had, Gamboa, TKO, Raimundo Beltran, they didn't think he would fight, unanimous decision. Thomas Delorme, technical knockout. Henry Lundy, Victor Pascal, John Molina Jr., Felix Diaz. Guys that people thought that there was going to be a certain level of competition and be able to beat him. He's beat. Julius Ndongo's kind of been the same way. 22-0. He's been able to capture 3 belts. And now he's going to go defend those belts as Bud's going to defend him. Terrence Bud Crawford's going to defend him in Lincoln. So this is the big fight. This is a huge fight that you want to watch. If you are a casual fight fan or you're a sports fan, you want to tune in. You're going to want to tune in to this fight. It's going to be on It's going to be on ESPN. It will be on ESPN. Here in the UK, it'll be on Sky. Got a few listeners from the UK. Canada, it will be on Canada Super Channel. So this it's out there. This is a big fight. And definitely one you want to turn into. I see the ratings on this being pretty substantial. I'd like to see some more publicity going into this fight. Hopefully Bob gets him on for some more interviews. I actually had one of the men that will be fighting in this fight, Steven Nelson. He's on the undercard. He's 8-0. He'll be fighting against Cesar Ruiz, 5-5. He's a light heavyweight. It's not for a title, but there will be a title fight on there. Oh, it's a North American Boxing Federation light heavyweight title. So it's a title fight, but it's not something that, as a boxing fan, anybody's overly concerned with. Brian Jennings, who is a heavyweight, who fought and was able to beat Klitschko for a couple rounds, will be fighting against Daniel Martz. I don't know where he's from. Let me look at it. It's not a high quality competition for heavyweights, but we're getting Brian Jennings right after fighting against Klitschko. I don't see why, if you're Wilder, a guy that was able to beat a couple rounds against Klitschko didn't knock him out, went to decision. Why not get that guy in the ring, beat him, and knock him out? Because obviously he fought for a title. That puts him in a higher respect. Again, 2 losses. Brian Jennings has 2 losses. He's lost to Leonard Klitschko, and then he lost to Luis Ortiz. 2 guys that's been in the top 5-10 for several years now that Wilder hasn't even talked about. So, I don't know. Let's see. Brian Jennings is going to be interesting. He's an interesting guy to kind of know about. Dylan White, he's another one of those guys. Yeah, to be the best level of competition that he's faced thus far. Only loss was by TKO to Anthony Joshua. The rest of his competition hasn't been remarkable. Nonetheless, he has challenged for that the WBC International belt, the Commonwealth, the British, and he captured the WBC International belt and the vacant BBB of C. It's a British heavyweight title. So he holds those 2 right now. Yeah, I believe that was a belt that Anthony Joshua vacated. The BBBFC British heavyweight title. So there's tons of belts. Not really anything to worry about. But again, the best level of competition that Wilder probably could have faced to this point. And I think him being on this card, being a co-main event on this card in Lincoln, would have helped him tremendously. Because now he's going to be on ESPN next to Bud Crawford, who's fighting to unify all the belts. And so it's another guy you're not getting credit for. So it's another knockout on your. Again, it's the highest level of competition you've had. You want to fight. He wants to fight against guys that and get other title fights. Again, it's not that he wouldn't win. That's the thing is. It's not that he wouldn't win, but it's kind of like when Errol Spence came out and said, I want to fight Keith Thurman. Yeah, because Errol Spence has nothing to lose by saying he wants to fight Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman said no. Who's he fought? He hasn't fought any former champions or anything like that. Who has he fought to be in consideration for a title fight? Yes, he was it WBA or WBF title he holds right now after being Kell Brook. But Kell Brook, for the most part, is a middleweight now. He's never been known for speed. He doesn't have a ton of power. And he outboxed him in a fight that he looked really stiff in. He didn't look great in. But enough to win. Enough to win. So, this is the card that's coming up. Again, the main event is what you're coming for. That main event, Terrence Crawford and Julius Ndongo. That's the fight you're going to want to see right now. After that, probably the next major events we have coming up for major fights. And again, here in August, again, you'll see a lot with boxing in the month of August, September. After the Terrence Crawford fight, probably be, I would have to say, the Mayweather fight on the 26th is the next big fight that's worth watching. Yeah, pull a couple of those others up. I think so. The last fight, a fight you want to go back and watch, is going to be basically look at the top 5 pound for pound. You're going to want to watch fights from the top 5 pound for pound. Andre Ward being one of them. He's going to be one of the guys that you want to go back and watch and see his fight against Victor or Sergey Kovalev. Let me pull up this other one here. Bear with me here for a second. Yeah, that's all right. I'm not gonna. I'd say Mayweather is probably the next one you're gonna want to keep an eye on after that. But we'll keep you updated here as far as boxing goes. It's different. And one thing that people struggle with, talk to me about, they don't know when the fights are. And that's the responsibility of the sport to keep up on that. So, let's take a look at the clock here. We're coming up towards the end of the show. I have some podcasts and stuff coming out this week. A couple of them. So be on the lookout for those. Go over to thechtonsports.com. Got some articles up over there. You'll be able to watch a full version of this show over there as well. Didn't do Facebook Live tonight. We're going to try it again next week. I might do Facebook Live for some of the podcasts. But that's pretty much going to do it here tonight for the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. So I will see y'all next weekend. I'm out.